Be ready anytime.
All right, we're live and we're with Doug Dobson.
Hi
Um,
there.
Doug, I have known you since 2014. It's either 15 or 16.
What year was
Um,
your first Knowledge Fest?
that was my first Knowledge Fest. It was 20. Uh, trying to
Probably
connect
not that
our
important, really.
Facebook. It was 2015 was my first. Um, hang on, I'm trying to do.
Come on, I thought this was a
We
professional
started late.
event. Oh,
We started
it's not
late,
my
so the
fault.
thing's pissed off. Hang on, Doug. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I sorry.
I'll have to go make another drink.
Oh yes, you can. You're and drinking on air is completely fine with me. I don't give a fuck
I'm
if you
I'm
drink
not.
on.
I just got my purple drink.
Well, purple drink for some people is something else.
Yeah, well, this one is not. I do also carry my purple haze around, but this is just little Crystal Light packets. Ooh.
Well, you don't have to tell us what you drink. You don't have to make anything up. We love
Oh
you
no,
for
when
who
we're
you
done
are.
with
Doug.
this now, I should be at the Hungry Monk right now,
You should
but
be what?
at the Hungry Monk right now. So, yeah, that's Wednesday night. I'll do this. Once I leave this, I'll have a drink or two.
All right.
In
Well,
fact, they
I
have
wanna
they have
connect the fucking thing. Why won't it let me add it? Select destination. Okay. I want to add it, and I don't know why. It's because I ran a little bit late. Schedule a start time.
well, I mean, it shows it.
It's now. This is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do add a Facebook group, connect Facebook, and this will be right. This will make it right.
Yeah, it says started 17 minutes ago. You
Right,
click on it, and it says starting soon.
right. But I'm trying to get it to connect now.
It's all beyond me.
Yeah, but it's because I was running late, and let's see if this does it. I just don't want you to have. I want to let me do it. Fucking piece of shit. And of course, oh, Project Ruckus is already live. But can you see it in
Mm-hmm.
12 Connected? You can't see it in 12 Connected?
I don't see it on the link that was sent. 12 volt connected. Let's go there. Nope.
Your group. Why? Why? Why?
Because it's
All right.
me.
Yes. Move. All right. Facebook page.
Maybe I will have a drink.
You can have a drink, but I want to. All right. That should work. That's now we're connected in 12 Connected. YouTube is working. Phase 12 volt connected should be working. And it's working in 12 volt connected.
Hey, you're live now.
And it's working in 12 volt connected. All right. You got to turn your thing down though. All right.
Okay,
So now we're live in 12 volt connected. YouTube is working. I'm fucking happy. Thank you, Doug Dobson, for taking your time out. It's the middle of the day for you over there, right?
It's 5:30.
5:30. It's not that bad. But I asked you to come on because Marty Dean's a fucking jerk off and he didn't give me the information. But thank you for filling in for Marty, and Marty got shoved to next month. But I felt bad because we've done these things before and I've never had you on from the original Hardwired and you know, you were on when Brian did his thing, one of the first ones. Brian and I kind of became friends, and what a good friend he is to me.
And me as well.
Yeah. Well, let's start from the beginning. Now that we're 6 minutes in, and I was able to get this going, right? But you and I became friends when I sat next to you at a desk in Dallas, and you had no fucking clothes on.
What?
You had no fucking clothes on.
I mean, we met before that.
No, that was my first Knowledge Fest.
Well,
That was
yeah,
my second Knowledge Fest. So,
I mean, we'll have to narrow that down sometimes too. So, hasn't happened so much lately.
well, I mean, dude, you've done other things. You gave me the wettest of wet willies in Florida.
That was bad planning.
There was I don't like wet willies. I don't think many.
I know. I get it.
But you're my homie, bro, and you have been here, and you have been a supporter of all the weird shit I've been doing over these years, and for that I'm very thankful. There weren't too many people in your position that were kind of supportive of the live videos and the crap talk and really looked beyond just the surface of what I was saying and really understood that I was an industry cat that really dig this industry, and you were like, man, supportive all the way from the beginning.
Well, yeah, that's kind of my thing, and I support people who love the industry, work in the industry in any way I can, typically. But you do things that I'm not going to jump in and do a show. That's just not. Heck, I don't even know where I'm going to be week to week. So there can be challenges with that. But if you're doing something outside of my comfort zone or something I want to jump onto, whatever I can do to help, man. It's what I'm about. It's you think a little different than me, so it's got to be a way to reach a different crowd.
Right. And one of the things that I didn't know about you was you were really into the car audio competition scene long before I met you. You know guys that I know from the competition scene that are out here. Chris McNulty, you've known from that era. One of the gentlemen that I'm really friendly with, Ron Baker, from that stuff.
Oh yeah, Tyrone Chestnut, Albert Actenduro. Yeah, we were every event from 2000. I'm sorry, from 94 until 2002 or so. I probably didn't miss more than one event that was within 12-hour drive.
Right.
And so it led to a lot of good friendships and a lot of knowledge and something happened at one of the shows that kind of inspired me to try and do something a little different with what I was doing in life. And so, yeah, it's important to me. And it's fun to back.
Right. So what was the genesis for cardio for you? Where did you start? Because you were going to be a lawyer, I think, right?
Yeah. I mean, I was in car audio before that. I got hooked when I figured out how to use a relay. I'm about 12 years old, and um, uh, I was playing around with remote control, trying to add it to my car, and I'm like, I don't have anything to do with this, but I got this remote control. I'm like, oh, I can do my locks. Okay, that's cool, but I had an extra output, and I figured out that I could do anything with a relay that a switch could do, and like, I wonder if I can start a car with it. So I figured out how to use a 555 timer circuit and give me some crank time with the output, and latch the ignition, and it was probably not safe at all, but it was pretty darn cool to remote start my car when I was 12 years old. And it stuck with me. But after college and I started law school, I'm like, at the time we didn't really have much internet, too much reading of actual books, and I'm just like, this is boring as can be. And I'm looking at it, like, lawyers are dirty people, and you got to fight for guilty people. And I love the loophole thing, trying to find a way out of situations or different ways to look at it, but I just couldn't do it. And I paid my way through college working in stereo shops. So I'm like, I'm gonna start doing that. And unfortunately, I never stopped.
Well, unfortunate for you, but fortunate for a lot of the industry. You've done a lot of cool things. I saw, and I wish I was a little better prepared because we just did this a couple weeks ago. But you were doing a lot of Dodge Neon stuff at one point, where I saw you build stuff. Or was this for Dodge, or was this for clients of yours that just happened to be a lot of neons?
It really started with my best friend, Tim Kish. He and I did a lot of stuff back and forth with cars, and one of his cars happened to be a neon, happened to be one of the cleanest neons I've ever seen. Guy's an engineer at Eaton, and he's just meticulous with everything. And he wanted to upgrade his stereo, and I said, sure, let's take out the back seats, remold the bottom of the dash, put a system in around your roll cage, and at that time I was connected enough to reach out, and the first shaped subs from Extant, the first 12-inch, was hand delivered to me at a show in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, by Jason Plank, and we popped it into the car that was built for it, sitting out there, and got a lot of attention with that. Tim rarely lost a show. A couple other guys started getting involved in that through him, and seeing him at shows all the time. Chrysler came to us and asked us to be in their booth. I'm not sure what year it was, 2000-ish. And so we did North American International Auto Show. We had his neon in their booth. They made up shirts with his car and stuff in it. Just a little different experience than a lot of people have had on that end of things, but just a stroke of luck, really.
Right. So you mentioned a couple people that are so I can't say Jason's my friend, but I've had dealings with Jason Plank for a long time. And Carlisle, Pennsylvania is literally an hour this way from my house. So, these are both things that are, and Carlisle was they had the import tuner jam in Carlisle. And big show for a lot of the East Coast guys, and obviously Midwest guys too. It's Carlisle, Pennsylvania is only, I would say, 4 hours or 5 hours from like Ohio, right? It's not a huge.
Yeah, it was the place, and it's kind of weird. Oh, that's our place where import show is, and of course it was also the mini truck show and the
Chevy show,
Chevy shows and the Mopar shows, and you could find a reason to get there just about every weekend.
Right. So you at the time you were working or had your own place. You had your own shop in Michigan, I think, right?
Yep, Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Right. And then one day, you decided to go to Arizona.
Um, no, not one day. No, I had a surgery that went bad and left me without the ability to leave my lazy boy chair for 3 months. And when I got done with that, I the shop just hadn't done well without
Right.
me checking in on it, doing anything. And I was frustrated with everything. And I said, well, I get offers all the time. It's time to go check something out and get to a different spot because I was angry with everybody around me. And so I jumped across the other side of the country.
Right. And what did you do there? I mean, that this is kind of the beginning of you working in the industry as opposed to working in the industry like a retailer like myself.
Well, I came out, and it's kind of interesting. I came out to work at one shop um, where I had arranged uh, to work under a guy named Eric Schmiedel. Who
Oh, not that guy. Then why
that
did you
guy?
do that? Eric's not short.
I don't know why I did what I did.
I'm just
I don't
I'm just
know. There's no reason
I'm
for
just
that. No, he's
teasing.
not short.
I'm just
Um,
teasing. Just teasing.
but I was supposed to work for him with him at a shop. And I came out, and uh, the owner kind of changed the offer that day, and I'm like, well, that doesn't work for me. So even though I'd just driven across the country with nothing but tools and a couple weeks of clothes in my car, I decided to take off, and I drove a little bit south from there and saw a sign of a shop that I had visited years before, helped them with a couple little projects for MTX and Extant. Um, I was a dealer back in Michigan, and they wanted me to kind of help the shop that could use somebody, and I was free to go. So I just saw the sign, and I stopped in, and they were just finishing up build on a new building, and they had cars that had to be built for SEMA, and cars were getting delivered the next day actually. So I started the next day and worked on boy, a bunch of cars for them the next year. By the time that year was over, I had hired Derek to work with me over there. And that's one of the times I decided to leave that place. And that was one of the times that I started to try and get out of the industry and do something different. But I ended up working with a bunch of 12-volt guys when I left, and we worked for Disney installing the audio video systems in all Disney stores around the country. But before I started doing that, I started hanging out with Todd Ramsey and Brian Schmidt regularly because they happened into the building that we were in while they were looking for a location for mobile solutions. And they're like, hey, we get together at this little bar right over here every Thursday. And so I'm like, well, I'll go hang out. And doing that, that's when you're hanging out with Larry Frederick every week, and Hank Gorda, and anybody who happened to come in town when Phoenix used to be kind of a hot spot for car audio. There'd be guys from Rockford there, and who had worked at many other manufacturers. So that got me in with a lot of people that were doing things other than normal retail. So when I eventually did get outside of retail, it was easy. I had all kinds of connections, and I'd done a lot of things with them all along. So
Right. I think it's an interesting story because, so many guys try to get out. They just try to get out. And at the point you're at now, you're way in. You're way in at HKI on the Turi side and kind of straddling both some of the ground zero Turi stuff. You're looking at DSP stuff right now. I know that. Um, and working on with Turi stuff. Tell me a little bit about how you got to the techie side. I mean, one of your good friends, like you said, is Derek Schmiedel, one of the smartest men that I know in this, and well, let's not say this industry because he's doing other stuff right now, but he's still in our industry. But
Oh yeah.
what got you? What led you to like the microchip side? Let's call it that, because there's so many guys that are in our industry that are uh, fabricators. You're a fabricator. You can make whatever the fuck you want to make. You're the microchip guy. You're the DSP guy. You're the troubleshooter. You're so many things, and it takes kind of a special guy to like microscopically go level to level to the level you're at. I mean, you're in the core of the earth of this stuff, if you were to speak. If that makes sense, right?
Keep going. It feels kind of nice here. The transition was easy. I mean, early on, fabrication was carpeting a panel really close to another panel.
Right.
There was not much of fabrication when I started doing stuff, and so Mark Facuda started doing his trains, whatever. But in the middle of all that, I was doing huge alarm systems and trying to figure out ways to make alarms do things they probably shouldn't have done, and trying to get things to work together. I had a roommate for a while. He was a business partner for a while, who worked at a GM dealership, and they came out with the GM Tech 2 systems. And he's like, "Yeah, we can plug in." And I start playing with this. It does work. I'm like, "Holy crap! I can do anything I want in this car with the data." And we're working with these really basic interfaces on remote starts, and they've got all this. I'm like, "This is cool. I mean, this is super cool." And I was hoping that it would evolve into more. On the audio side, I started, in 91, I had a Sony XES system. I bought it from the owner of our store when he got rid of his car that was our demo. And that system was a pain in the butt. But, as anything else came along, it sounded so much different than everything else. I kept on it. The real change for me was when I was out here, I got hired on to help a rep for Electromedia, who soon after stopped working for the company, and they asked me to come on board and work with them on the tech side. But part of that was Larry Frederick was the tech support guy there, and he didn't really have much interest or ability to do installs. And so I would help him with that. And they came out with this piece shortly after I started called the Bit 1. And it was back to DSPs, except this was something like revolutionary in regards to the recent car audio happenings. And I latched onto that thing, and we learned so much and trained so many people on that. It just became a standard for me in developing new products. So the tech side from that point, I was driven like, how is this so much different? Why is this so much better sounding? What can we do? We know it wasn't perfect to start with. What can we do to make it change? And whether I had the answer or the engineers actually came up with the answer, and then I figured out why they did. Tying old theories and things that we did to the newer equipment was just something I found super, super cool. So, Larry was no longer with the company, but we still had a bunch of high-end stuff going on. They got into the digital communication between DSP and amplifiers and whatever. After that all ended, started with another one. And I love DSP, and I love the control. It took me back to the days of competition, except I could tune a car in an hour better than I could at that time, because I'd have to move speakers to make it sound a little different, or I'd have to try some much more extensive things. And so that part of things just always interested me. And I had the good fortune, there happened to be places out here where a ton of money is spent. So when I was working at shops out here, it becomes something. It kind of lost myself reading that comment. It tied everything together, and it made me happy, and it made sense. That's where things should be. So I got lucky, trying to do something different. I got hired on an HKI to work with TURY, which brings me back to the days of all the old alarms that we used to do with our window interfaces and our throttle interfaces and whatever. But shortly thereafter, they asked me if I could help them find a vehicle for a booth for Knowledge Fest, and I'm like, I could toss some stuff in my Audi, and I built a car that happened to sound fairly good out of, I mean, it's a good format for a vehicle anyway. I've had some good sound systems in there, but able to put something together and made everybody else in the company like, oh, that's not just bass, but it sounds pretty good. Like, this is seriously freaking good sounding car. And they saw the value in that. And so now, aside from doing the TURY stuff, which I'm filling in for Marty tonight, and I filled in for Marty when he was no longer with TURY. Maybe I'm just second fiddle, who knows? But that expanded my role there a little bit, and in that I get to be more active on the audio side, which of course is where my heart and my love really is. But I've had several stops along the way that all works together to make it all a pretty fulfilling life and career.
So I was talking to another guy last night. His name is Jason Ewing, and Jason and I were talking a little bit about just talking about tech support. And Jason is one of the best tech support guys that I know. I've called him with my fucking hair on fire because something's not working, right? And you've tried everything. You're one of those guys, just kind of like Jason, super professional, super calm, and able to actually talk guys off the fucking ledge, bro. Like, you've talked me off a ledge a couple times, talk to me about what you would suggest a guy do. His hair is on fire. He's been looking at this thing all day. He's looked at the menu. He's looked at the manual that he didn't read 10 times because he didn't read it. He just looked at it, right? 10 times. What kind of suggestions would you have for installers, especially veterans like myself who already know everything, right? Those are the worst calls, right? They already know everything. They've already tried everything. They didn't read anything. But what kind of suggestions can you give guys that are going to call you and ask for help?
I mean, the first thing is step back and really look at what's going on. The problem is that we're probably so wrapped up because we know we did everything right, but we don't realize that we didn't do one of the most basic things right. In fact, quite often, most of TURY stuff is plug and play. And so I'll have people call me, and if I'm on another call at the time, I'm like, okay, well, I'll call them right back, whatever. And, okay, it's been 5 or 6 minutes. I'm done with the previous conversation. I'll call them back, and they're like, oh, I figured it out. I'm like, yeah, because you looked at the manual now because you were, you couldn't figure it out in 30 seconds. It's almost always going to be something silly, and it's almost always going to be something inexpensive. So that was the first thing. When I got into DSPs, everyone's getting upset, and they're looking at blaming everything else, and start with the USB cable. It's the cheapest part of any of that there. Maybe let's just swap it out. No, I know you bought the USB cable, but let's try another one. There's something else. It'll all work It has to work at some point. We can figure it all out. We just got to clear heads. And it's funny that you say I've got one of the coolest demeanors, because on my own stuff, that's not the case. I wig out quickly. But keeping other people, if someone calls me, I can't do that, or I'm useless to them, and then we're just frustrated people. So, but to be prepared, I mean, actually have the vehicle there, know what's going on. Don't be. Clothing is optional for whoever's saying that. I don't see any names on this, so I don't know who's talking, but
Well, I can tell you who it was. That was Ellen Roth from Florida
ah,
saying that clothing was optional, and then Lord Phil seems to think you're bottomless, which is
I,
honestly probably the case. I'm just gonna no, don't you fucking dare.
you said
This
I
is
could
a
do whatever I wanted.
you could, but I don't want to. I mean, yeah.
All right, fine.
So
So,
so
no, just
there's another
be
interesting
prepared, and
part to
don't lie to the guys trying to help you in tech support. Don't say,
okay,
"Oh yeah, I got 12 volts there," because it never measures 12 volts.
right.
One of the first things I said to Dara DeGran when she started working in tech support, and I go, "You're going to ask somebody what the voltage is, and they're going to tell you 12. Tell them you need it to 3 decimal points. And if they only have 2, you need 3. Your meter's not going to give them 3, but they're going to go back and actually test it and see that it's 10.4 and realize what the problem is. So be honest with the guys. There's a reason we're asking what we're asking, and there's a reason we're starting at a spot that may not even seem like it's related to what you're experiencing.
Right. So I was gonna get into something because you helped me out with a part that I was looking for one of my builds that I still haven't gotten to. And you're an avid collector of cool car audio, right? How there's two people that I think of if I need a part that's kind of, let's say, actually there's three people I would think of. It's Doug Dobson, Don Amon, and Gary Biggs. You guys probably have the three largest collection of car audio in probably the world, honestly.
I
How'd you
I
start
feel like
doing
that's
this?
not really true, because I've seen some people's collections that they have stuff to show off. I might have the most odd collection though.
Okay. Because I was looking for something that quite honestly is almost fairy dust, right? Like that PPI pump sensor thingy, temperature sensor.
TCU.
I Yeah, I've only seen, and I have a customer that had, I don't know if you ever saw this. We had a customer that had an old school build as a BMW 2002 with 3 8W6s, PPI art, water cooled amps that were actually water cooled, and all of it's intact. He's offering it to me for like pennies. But it's cool that you understood how awesome it was to have those unique parts. What got you started on collecting?
Um, Working in a shop that didn't have everything sitting around, and so I wanted to have everything. I mean, honestly, it started with backstrap, and later on the little MB Core logos that we didn't put on the grills, because we mount everything behind the door. Anything that a customer didn't want, I'm taking these small parts and I'm building an inventory. I'm going to have parts, and then it turns into other things like, oh yeah, just throw all that out. I'm not going to throw it out. This is kind of cool. My customers had more money than I did, so these parts are something I might be able to do something with.
Right.
And for the most part, I haven't done anything with them, but I had them, and now they come in handy for people. The best part is I have 2 of those thermal control units. I gave you the one, and the mini that I'm just starting to build now for myself to compete with has 4 amplifiers that have water cooling jackets built in. So I will
So
be putting,
are those ground zero amplifiers?
yes, sir.
Okay. So I can see I see what you're up to. There's a lot of guys building really crazy big things in this class that's going to be kind of wild. I mean, you and I would probably compete in the same class. I would gather.
I tell you, it's weird as can be. Having just first show in me competing myself in ever, but first show in several years at Steel Valley Regionals 2 weekends ago, I guess. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't, what class are you in for this? I don't know. This
Clue,
one I'm in
right?
pro mod, and this one I'm in pro, and this one I'm in, whatever else that every organization has different ways to define it. So I went up against some people in certain classes, and then a totally different group of people in other classes, which is
Right.
kind of neat. It used to be it was all broken down by power, and now we kind of realize power is cheap, and anybody can have as much power as they want. So let's do it by the level of complexity. They've taken most of the actual, the points for creativity or whatever on install and gotten rid of that because that kind of ruined it for a lot of people. It became a point of, well, if you spend a few more $1,000s, you might get a couple more points, and then you'll be able to beat, the guy that you're trying to beat. And that wasn't the heart of anything. So now it makes it a little more even. Everybody's got power. So, oh, you're using all stock locations. Oh, you've got a modified dash. Oh, you added this over here. You cut through the chassis of the car for infinite baffle. Different things like that change it, and it puts you more on a level playing field. So that's kind of cool.
When you start, thinking about an audio system as a professional and seeing the car show scene, which for me is where I live and where I came from, fancy show off cars and stuff like that. What happens when you what happens when you plan a system? What is the first thing? Is it cosmetics? Is it the audio? Is it a combination of both? What are you looking at when you're designing a system?
It depends. Like this particular one, this one first and foremost has to sound good. This one, the whole goal is to do well at Emma and get it to the actual world finals, not the ones that we have over here that we call world finals. The ones in Salzburg, Austria. And so it has to sound good. That's the absolute primary thing. Now, the fact that I haven't missed but one class at Mobile Solutions in the past 16, 17 years, I can do a little bit of fabrication. And, I have friends that are some of the absolute best designers ever in car audio and interiors in general of cars. So it's not going to be ugly by any means. But this one's going to be based on the best thing I can do for the sound for the class that I'm going to be in. Years ago, when I built my Audi for the first time, that was about, let's make a cool demo vehicle, but it's got to look really freaking cool. So that one we went with everything Tom Miller designed, and happened to turn out to sound pretty darn good as well. But it was about looking good and being able to show off the equipment easily. In a normal system, the compromise would be that it's going to look better than it's going to sound. But mostly because most people are in it for the absolute best in sound. I built a world champion for a buddy of mine. I don't remember what year it was, late 90s. And, we chased it for years and kept building better and better, and sometimes went backwards, but he absolutely loved his cars. Went from that point to, 3 years ago, he moved out here to Phoenix, where I am now, and he stopped by my work. He sat in the demo car we had on the floor. Like, dude, this thing sounds way better than my old competition car. Yeah, it's pretty easy now. You know, we got some tricks. He bought a Jeep JK. Terrible, terrible vehicle format
One of
wise
the
for
worst
sounding good.
vehicles for sound quality for sure.
I tossed a system in his Jeep in a day, and dude wouldn't shut up about it. He's like, this thing, it does everything better than my old competition car does. It wasn't that he was about having something that worked in that particular install, because he didn't want to give up space, because he's going to, if he's off on Wednesday night for 4 days, 5 days, whatever, by Thursday morning at 6 a.m., he's halfway to his destination. He is gone. He's going to use that Jeep, and he's not going to give up any space. So for him,
Just like all of our customers, all of our customers are the same way. Though.
It's their vehicle. They're going to use it their way. If it's a show vehicle, yeah, it's got to look good. I mean, overhaul should have taught us that. It doesn't matter what their real goal is with it. They put some nice systems in a lot of those cars. They almost never made it about it looking good. Of course, most of them also didn't make it about sounding perfect. Compromise all the way around. But it's what the customer wants, and most of the time it's being out of the way. But if I show it off, open it up, it's got to look good.
Right. So we have a question this is from Colton Wadley, and he asks, not sure if we're allowed to ask questions, but if I may, for the both of you, what is the most important fundamental you feel is necessary to master and have a successful car audio career? I'll let you answer your question first. I'll let you say your answer first, and I'll give you my answer.
Don't ever stop trying to learn. Ever. If you think you know enough about a subject, either find something else to study or just get another job, because it's changing, and one of us somewhere knows the most about it, and they don't know a lot of what somebody else knows. There's always plenty to learn. Don't hesitate to learn. Do any education track you can, any event you can go to, and some of the coolest things, all the classes at Mobile Solutions, we teach a lot of really cool stuff there. Brian has a rich history. The other guys that come in to help as well. But almost everybody in that class will learn stuff from the guys sitting next to them, who may have never touched a speaker before in his life, but happens to know how to stitch really well, or is a body guy who wants to start doing interiors, but he knows the living crap out of how to use fiberglass and the materials that we use to fabricate. And we all learn from everybody else. And if you don't put yourself in a situation to learn that stuff, you're going to be hurting, and it's going to be a job and not a career.
Right. So I'm going to answer this question, and I agree with you. I think that learning in this industry is absolutely paramount. If you don't want to learn, then you don't want to get to the next level. And the next level is almost daily, because there are new model cars coming out every single month, or couple months. It's almost kind of ridiculous. But I I have gotten to the point where I think that if you love what you do, you're not learning, you're playing. Like, I have my little play space at home, and I have a play space at work, and I'm constantly experimenting. And I have to thank, you and both Brian for kind of opening my eyes up and teaching me how to fab, really, because I I just want to learn how to fab one day so I can be a real installer. You know,
That joke will
And
never get old.
it will never get old. But you were the curator of that joke. You were one of the first people to just poke at it nonstop because it's so ridiculous. Let's see what Jared has to say. This is Jared's answer to that same question. He said, I can answer that. Network. Have a group that you can work with and share. I speak with both of you often enough to know that we all have our strengths and weaknesses. We can help each other and learn. This is absolutely the motherfucking truth. I talk to Jared very often. I call him really mean names. You guys are in the same town. You hang out. Evidently, you stood him up today. He was very upset about that and made a point to say it.
I'm sorry, Jared. The foam has not come in. In fact, I'm surprised I haven't heard the doorbell ring. We're sitting here, but I'll be over to make some cases soon. He's one of those people I lean on.
Right. Well, and that's, kind of what someone was saying is, what he was saying, your network, I don't know if you know this, but, me and Elias have known each other for a long time. And he's worked for me and other shops in the area. Actually, he's worked for almost all the shops in the area. I'm just going to say that right now. But we all have a good network. We all are a team, whether it be finding a piece of product or, warning each other about a potential client that sucks. We all have this network and we can lean on each other, and that's where the success comes from. I would say in the DC area, I mean, we all know each other. We all have a good idea of, right. It's not always show it. It's not always what you know, but who you know, right? And that's from Anthony. Anthony, I can never pronounce your last name. Aho. Aho. Sounds like a
Like you
hole.
sometimes.
I don't mean that. I don't mean that in a mean way. I'm sorry. I'm not making fun of your name, but it's just, I'm trying to pronounce it the way I see it. And actually, Dean says, one day I will be a fab guy. Yeah, you
Well,
spelling
come
it
on,
doesn't
he's
tell me
got
how
to show up to
to
classes.
pronounce
He
it.
never shows up to classes, so
If I ever show up to classes,
have you made the last
well,
few?
well, I mean, I have made commitments to go to those things, and I have been. Gee, so today, August 2nd, 2019 was the last time I've been to Mobile Solutions. That was 4 years ago. And for a time, I would go to almost every other class. I mean, it was pretty consistent from 2017 to 2019.
Oh
And,
yeah.
Brian will have his time here, but I will say that Brian has done more for me and some of the guys that are in that training circle, than he probably even intended. You know, Brian is a very good man, and I don't care what you say about him when he's not around. Man, so what do we have to look forward from Turi? Can you go over some Turi stuff? Because we've done the personal side, we got time. Can you go over some stuff that what Turi's about? If you want to touch on Ground Zero, that's awesome too. But this is really about over their updates, updating people who are interested in the brand that you work for and what it's about.
Well, so the biggest thing that most people would know about Terry, or the first thing they would hear about it, would be about the Terry Fast throttle interfaces. And it's actually easy to talk about now because we finally have everything that we've been trying to do for quite some time in stock, selling now for, I don't know, a couple months. Well, since K-Fest Orlando, that's when it came into stock. But we have a series of throttle interfaces. Kind of falls in line with what Pedal Commander, Banks, several different manufacturers have some type of control system to get rid of the lag that's inherent in electronic throttle controllers. So we look at it a little differently than some of them. Most of them have a control panel. For us, it's an option, but we went about it in a different way that really helps out the 12-volt retailers. So like if you say you bought a new Silverado, you go to a dealer who does the other ones, and oh, you got this. Okay, so it's a Silverado. Which engine do you have? Okay, we've got that. We've got this. We can order this one. We happen to have it in stock, whatever. Ours uses a universal module that works in 600 and some different vehicles, and we have a series of harnesses that go to that module. So it's easy to keep it in stock. Well, I don't have my kit right here to show because it's in the car to go to Jared's house. See?
Yeah.
But bits and pieces. So a little universal or a little harness that goes into the universal module. God, that's not easy on this little camera. What the heck am I doing? All right. But it's all app-based. So you plug this module in, turn on the ignition of the vehicle, and within 30 seconds, you've got it programmed to the vehicle. It operates from Bluetooth. But instead of doing what everyone else does, where we just get rid of the throttle lag, we've done a lot of other things that have really kind of, when we took it into Canada, they didn't seem to care at all about having any kind of throttle controller, because the roads are always covered with ice and snow and they have too much slippage anyway. But we have gotten into doing other things with that throttle. And the biggest thing is we now have it auto lock set up. So every single time the ignition cycles on a vehicle, you can have the gas pedal just completely lock out until a phone that's been programmed to it is present in the vehicle. You can put 4 different phones to it. So, whole family can operate it in their own ways. But having the pedal lock up is something that's, it's been a big thing. It's a huge seller right now for Kia and Hyundai are a big thing, but the biggest thing is the TRX trucks and the Hellcats and Red Eyes. It's so easy to steal those cars, but when the throttle pedal is dead, they can't, they can start it at most and idle away. So to aid in that, we also now have a steel enclosure that you can put the unit in and mount it up under the dash, so they can't
unplug it.
If they figure out what's going on, they can't even get to it and bypass it in any reasonable fashion. And because we have the ability to do that with the throttle signal, like, well, let's do other things. We've got a valet mode. And you can still choose to lock the pedal manually, as it has been for the past year or so, just entering a little code and lock the pedal out just when you choose to, if you don't want to lock all the time. So we didn't lose any of that. But along the lines of controlling the signal like that, like, the valet doesn't need to have the full power of the car, and you don't want to travel with the 2 different keys for your Hellcat, and it doesn't really limit them all that much. So we have a valet mode where you can control the output of the pedal from half of the signal all the way down to 15% of the signal. So they can park your car, but they can put the pedal to the floor, and it's not going to be any fun to drive. It's not going to be anything that they're going to want to show off and cause any problems with. And so we put that to work in another way. Now we have the ability to send a signal to the unit. We put an input wire on it, so you can tie it to a drone or a smart start, some other telematics device, and remotely lock the pedal. If you didn't have it locked and drive, I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but this is happening. You can hit the auxiliary output. You can have it trigger. I was talking to Jason Ewing the other day, and I guess on the drone Max, where it's a standalone unit, you can just tie it to the starter cutout, so you can lock that pedal anytime you want using that. You can trigger it with just a negative pulse will lock the pedal, and and removing that negative or negative latch will lock the pedal, and removing it will unlock it. So doing that, you can lock it remotely, see the thing driving away, but we activate it going through valet mode. So it goes down to 50% of throttle, 40, 30, 20, and then
So you're
you
not
choose
creating a
the last.
dangerous.
Yeah, so it clears the highway or street or whatever. And the last step is either completely locking the pedal or our Canadian mode, because that we became very aware at the CMA show that if the car's in motion on the roads, you can't just shut the pedal off. And it makes sense, and maybe the other parts of it could qualify, but you can take it down to 10% of throttle. So again, they're not getting away with your car.
Right.
And we've gone a level beyond that, because we had somebody go, God, this would be really cool if we we could put this in all the cars at dealerships. There was a dealership in Chicago where the guys came in and they stole every key out of the lockbox. What are you going to do? They're going to come and get the cars at some point in time. You don't know when, you don't know what they're doing. And so we came up with a thing called a magic key. And it's a way that instead of having to program every salesperson at a dealership's phone into the modules, you can just get a matched set of little keys or remotes, and the pedal won't work unless one of the paired remotes is there. And so every dealer, every car at the dealership has a fast in it, and anyone can go start it, whatever, but they're not going to drive the car until there's a salesperson or someone who happens to has a magic key with them to go out for a ride. And we've got other levels. I mean, that can be used in conjunction with phones for individuals who are super nervous about vehicle getting stolen. And, what if they stole my car, but they have my phone too? So I couldn't activate the remotely. Well, if you really want to get into that, you can put a magic key in there and it'll look for it all the time. And when that car is away from the signal of the magic key, for 1 minute or whatever interval you set, it'll go into the same lockdown mode. So we've done a whole lot of security measures with it that really changed how people looked at it, and it's been super, super effective. And we did something, I had a couple guys go, it'd be really cool if you could just control the RPMs with it. There's no reason you can't. So now for SPL guys who need to make the most power out of their alternator, or idiots like me who take their Jeeps out in the wilderness and need to weld up something on the trail, and you want the alternator put out a ton of current, now there's a mode where you can just rev the engine wherever you want, push a button, and it'll lock the output right there and keep your RPMs up with a plug-and-play 30-second install. It's pretty freaking killer. And you want to go back to normal operation, touch the pedal and it unlocks and goes back to normal. So super flexible with that. We've got a couple guys now who are starting to use that in all their outfitted vehicles for police cars, because they want the increased alternator output. A lot of times they're responding to certain situations.
So I think that's a really cool idea, and I actually think fast is a really good idea, or the fob idea for police law enforcement as well, because a lot of times they'll have a service dog in the car and they leave the car running and it's an emergency. They jump out of the car, they don't even realize the car is running with the dog in the back, and they whatever. So I really think it's cool that you guys have come up with something that is really cool. And you and I have talked about this online and kind of zung me, give me some zings, right? But it's okay because we can do that because we're friends, right? We're friends. It's not personal.
We're exchanging ideas.
Yes, and a loud inside voice over the interwebs, right? And this is funny because your friends, right? You know your friends, and you're like, blah blah blah, and like I can see like you're a fucking idiot, You know, I can see it when you're typing it. Like you just know your personality of your friends, right?
I know my friends have called me an idiot to my face, so they're not afraid to do it behind my back for sure.
So now we have to dig into Ground Zero a little bit, and uh, you guys are developing a new. I've heard your car at the last Knowledge Fest, and it was fucking badass, right? I think you had a either someone tuned it, did an awesome job, and I think they only use crossovers.
The
Was that
last time that it was at Knowledge Fest, yeah, that was just crossovers and time alignment and levels, and that is how I competed at Steel Valley Regionals. And then I had several of the judges that I asked to come back over, and I'm like, okay, we did this because it's open and really free sound, but you listen to something that doesn't have any EQ on it, and it kind of like, well, that might explain a few little things I heard. I'm like, would you mind taking a few minutes and listen to this? And Nick Apicella, I had do a tune on it when we first got to Steel Valley, and every one of the judges said, "Yeah, you should have done this," just because by the score sheet it would have scored a lot better. And I tied for first, and I asked pro class, so lost in the tiebreaker. But if I got one more point, that would have been pretty cool there. And I don't know, the MASQ contest, I think I was 4 or 5 points off from the leader, so it could have made
well,
it.
I'm gonna
But
say this. I'm gonna say this out loud on the internet. Nick Apicella is a great tuner. He does a great job doing some of that stuff. And if you know our history, you know that this is some pride swelling right here for me to say this.
he knows his stuff.
He knows his
For
stuff.
his young age, he knows an incredible amount and is fantastic at what he does.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. So, what kind of stuff could we look forward from Ground Zero? What can you talk about? Because I know you guys have some ultra mega high end stuff coming with big dials. But what about some of the other stuff you guys have coming? Can you kind of touch on some of that stuff?
I don't know a lot of it, honestly. The super high end stuff is obviously the one closest to me. Um, that's what I'll be playing with in the mini that I'm building, and it's some silly level equipment. Going to be really, really cool. Most everything else is available already. They've got a new lineup of components in, let's see, in the, we just, I don't know, the plutonium lineup of speakers has just been upgraded. Tommy just switched those before his car was lost. New hydrogen components. I think. Oh, these are notes coming through from Lord Phil, one of my favorite reps out there.
He's trying to feed you some information. I
Yeah,
like
well,
it.
good, because I wasn't prepared. Tommy's on here too; he could help. Come on.
Well, I'm gonna have
You're,
Tommy on a separate show at
we
some
have
point.
such a huge range of equipment in the Ground Zero lineup. It's insane. So trying to keep track of it is so. And we've got a couple lines of pro audio stuff, and then we get into the regular audio, which in itself has 6 or 7 lines. A huge, huge range of stuff, and the guys are nonstop. So the biggest thing that we're going to come up with soon is a fresh lineup of DSPs, and it's not going to be as soon as I would like because I would have them already. But it is definitely time and the biggest goal to get DSPs back in the market. I might push for that a little bit on my end of things for sure.
Right.
But,
All right. So
day,
before we leave, because Dean told me I have to be strict about time. Have to be.
what does he know?
What? I don't know what he knows, bro. The guy just talks and I often listen, but he don't tell me what to do. Um,
No one tells you what to do.
no one tells me what to do. So what can you tell me about one of the products that we've used is the Turi window modules. It's kind of a lost art. Remember, we used to do window modules on the regular in this industry. It used to be a regular thing.
So Turi does have a lineup. One of the cool things about Turi, I probably should have said it before, it's a tier 1 supplier for I don't know, it's
Nissan.
11 or 14 different OEM manufacturers. So
Mhm.
they know the standards. They've developed a lot of stuff for manufacturers, and sometimes it's not necessarily used. And so that gives them something to sell on the aftermarket side. One of those things is the Pro lineup, which is plug and play power window interfaces. And now you can spend close to 100 grand on a new truck, and it'll have one touch operation on the front windows for both up and down, but the back
Right.
windows are push and hold, pull and hold. The same on the rear sliders. And I hate to say it, but Americans are not the smartest people. They tell you to put something important in the back seat so you don't forget your kid back there. Well, if you're sidetracked enough to forget your kid, you might be sidetracked enough that you crush your kid's hand because it's hanging out the window and you're pulling on that lever. So our plug and play interfaces, not only are they super easy and cut wires, they also have actual real smart technology for anti-pinch. A very measured anti-pinch, not the, well, if it draws enough current, it's going to stop.
Resistance based, right?
No cutting resistors. We actually look at how many times the motor turns to make a full lifting or lowering of the window, how much current it takes, the time it takes. We analyze it constantly, but the unit learns what that particular window combination requires to make it operate correctly, and that's used every single time that the window goes up and down. And you can set it for quick pushes or long pushes to activate it. But because of the technology that we use for it, we also can tie to factory remotes. So we look at lock signals and light flashes, and we can tie your factory remote to your window so that they all roll up. When you lock the car, 3 times unlock will roll them down. With your Sierra AT4s and more loaded vehicles that have proximity keys, same thing. You walk away, it'll lock, roll your windows up, and do the whole job for you. And it'll the rear slider, sunroof. Some of them plug in BCMs, and they're super easy. But it's a pretty thorough lineup of things. We're focusing on doing the trucks here. That's the big sellers in the U.S. And it's also something that in Brazil, where Turi is located, they have not had full-size trucks historically. So it's a new market for them. But we run across things in Brazil. The Ford Maverick only has one touch operation on all the windows from the factory. Tommy just got a new one, and it does one touch down from the driver, and everything else is manual. So we're going to build a module for that, and it's really cool working with the guys. We talk with the engineers every single day. So the communication is wide open, and we know what's going on, and we know that this stuff works, and sometimes it gets really particular because we're working across international lines, and GM will sell one vehicle as 7 different vehicles across the world and change little bits here and there, but we can work through it all really quickly, and it's been pretty cool to watch it happen and how quickly it can happen at times.
Right. So I love
And
how you were able
be
to.
tied to aftermarket remotes too.
Right. So yeah, I was gonna say I love how it could still be added traditionally, like we would have our if you're a DEI old guy, your orange lock, you know, what is it? Orange would be block when armed or ground when armed output. I'm getting old, man. Getting
Yes,
old. Starting to
yes, you
forget
are.
things. Holy shit! I'm
I've
starting
got
to.
gray hairs here, lots of them. I mean, I got
Well,
lots of hairs.
I have no hair to make sure that I don't have any gray hairs. So but I'm gonna see you hopefully in a couple weeks. I'm 100% going now because I have to go because I've been called out by you and Brian a numerous amount of times for missing. It's probably been 4 classes I missed now. So
Well,
it's
if
been
you
a
don't
while.
come out to Mobile Solutions the next day, well, the day after the next class, I'm driving to Dallas, so we can see you at K-Fest. Or are you not doing that one?
Tried not to do
Oh,
K-Fest.
God, here it goes again.
I tried not to. I called Richard yesterday and I was like, dude, I just can't. He's like, oh, dude, you're gonna mess it all up. So I was like, fine, I'll do it. So I'm just gonna tell you this. Next year, my whole, doing every single event thing, not gonna do it. I'm running out of time. And it was a lot of fun this year doing almost every single event. But dude, man,
I got
it's
back
not even
this
about the
weekend.
expenses. I'm
I got
sorry.
back this weekend from 10 weeks on the road.
Yeah, but that's kind of what you do. Like I have the choice of not going. I can just not go. I'm not obligated to go. You know what I'm saying? But you are obligated. Oh, Tommy says you guys are announcing something in Dallas that's very special. So
It's pretty freaking
maybe,
special.
maybe we come over with our over the air updates cameras. It sounds gay because
Come
we
on
have my
over.
phone.
We'll give you
And
the scoop as long as you beat Dean to it.
so me and Dean aren't competing. I don't do this. This is not the same thing as Dean. I want to say that right now. Because I'm way behind. If I'm trying to compete with Dean, that's like trying to compete.
We're going to tell everybody about it. Not everybody's going to get it, but we'll gladly share.
Froze. What the fuck? How do we freeze? How do we?
Not
That's
freezing
weird.
here. It's down to
No,
104 though.
I'm plugged in and I got the cheap internet. My cheap fucking internet. So, all right. Well, thank you so much, Doug. I appreciate it, dude. I think that it's awesome that you were able to come on and share your story and a little bit about Turi and HKI. And hopefully, since we have Tommy online, maybe one of these days I can get Tommy to do something. I can kind of bribe him with some banana pudding.
There you go.
So,
You just mentioned
but
it. So
anyway, guys,
everybody.
thank you so much. Next month, Marty Dean, the curator of the Cardio Smithsonian, he knows what that is. I don't know if you've ever heard that joke, Doug, but that's literally how I met Marty at an indie knowledge fest, and we came up with the idea of having a Smithsonian car audio.
I
So,
think that was already mentioned. I was the curator here in the.
was it?
Yeah.
Well, I just say what I want. So,
Yeah. Well,
you can be whatever the fuck I tell you are. How about that?
okay.
So easy. All right, guys. I love you all. Thank you for taking your time. Again, this is 2 days in a row, and I'm fucking tired. And I have shit to do, like a motherfucker today. I have a fucking car. I have a customer's car that's a neighbor. Instead of driving the car an hour, I was like, fuck it, I'll just do it in my garage. Mistake. I don't want to do that shit tonight, but
Too
that's what I'm gonna
late.
do. Too late,
Made
right?
a promise.
So
You got to do it.
yeah. Well, I mean, I can't mobile solution him, right? Like that's not right.
I mean, he's probably not going to move away because of it, but he might not be a customer anymore.
Oh, I'm gonna take care of it. It's an easy thing. So, all right, guys. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Doug. I appreciate you, and we'll see you next time.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me.
Later.